I am so happy to bring back to the channel one of our outstanding guests, Herbert Ong. And Herbert, it's you always are bringing something new to the table, but today we're going to be talking about something that everybody's talking about, and I'd just love to hear your feelings about what's going to happen on 419.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody, Herbert Ong, Brighter with Herbert.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Randy. I appreciate it. I love it that we're flipping it. Usually I'm the one interviewing you. This is going to be a fun. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, so we have earnings day coming on the 19th. Everybody this week is like up in the air between whether they think earnings day is more important or Starship launch is more important. So which one do you think?
Well, obviously they're both important, but Starship is going to be historic, right? This one is very, very important for the world and for humanity. It's going to be one of those really important things that's going to be marked down in history. I think April 19th is really a blip. Nobody's going to be talking about this after April, after April 20th, except for us Tesla investors who are so carefully watching it. In fact, honestly, I'm not worried about April 19th either, because I'm a long-term investor. I've been investing since 2012 in Tesla. I did the same thing with Apple. And what I do is I do not look and care about the earnings calls each quarter. I don't even look at them. I don't care. I peek at it a year later. All I do is I'm a product manager. I'm a startup guy. I just care about the business. I care about the strategy. I care about what the market that they're attacking and the benefit, how people are viewing their products and if they're buying or not. And these quarterly, blips and up and down in stocks, I try to ignore it. But because I started doing a YouTube channel, because I started Cyber Bulls, the whole point of Cyber Bulls is, we have 5 of us now that are all different strategic investors. We have different kind of investor styles. Uh-huh. And so you have Christian, who is a momentum investor. You have Xander, who's an options trader. You have myself and Alexandra, who is long-term strategic investors. And then there's Jeff as well, who kind of does all of it, right? And because of that, I kind of start to need to follow along each quarter. So to me, it's like April 19th is important. It's going to set the stage for the following year in terms of the stock price. The stock has fallen significantly, but personally, it's a blip. It's not that important. What matters is the next 2 or 3 years, right? That's my horizon. So,
well, like you, I'm a founder and I'm a product guy. I've been in marketing all my entire life, and I understand that sometimes the financial side of it seems like it's not that important, especially on a company like Tesla or Apple, where it's so huge, it's hard to sometimes wrap our arms around it. However, what I'm going to be looking for is a bunch of what you want to call key performance indicators, which is what I would have been doing with my own company in terms of what my strategic approaches might be with any given product in any given territory. In terms of bringing on new product, whatever it might be. But so I'm curious. I've already told my crowd pretty much what my theories are about Wednesday. I'm just curious now that you have to look at it. What are the things you are hoping to hear in terms of either the financial side or in the call? I mean, I love to sit at the call. I don't know about you. I like to listen to the call and have the after hours stock thing going right next to it and watch.
Oh, see, I don't do that. That's interesting.
Watch when somebody says something and it goes up, and then somebody says something else and it crashes. It's just fun. It's just fun. Just crazy.
Okay.
Anyway, so
yeah. I mean, so first of all, I interview quite a number of people and I hear their opinions. And so I kind of take everybody's opinions that I form based on that, what I think what I think I'm hearing from people that I think is true or not, and what to evaluate. But in general, I'm an optimistic person, right? I look at Tesla and it depends on if you still believe and if you still trust Tesla management. So some people will go and say, well, I don't trust them anymore because they have made statements that have not come true. They said that they were going to do 50% growth every year or even just in balance, but it didn't hit that this year. There's a few times that we thought that they were going to knock it out of the park in terms of deliveries and production, and then they didn't hit it. But for me, I believe and I still see when I hear when Tesla management says something that they have information that they know and they can make that prediction of what's going to happen. And for me, I still very much believe what Tesla management says. So I'm very optimistic. I actually think that they're going to hit over 20% auto gross margin, which is what Zach Horn was saying. People are saying, well, when he said that, he didn't necessarily say exactly that it was this quarter. It might be over the year. So again, I don't care so much of what happens, but I do think that they're going to hit it. And there's a number of reasons. We'll talk about it, why I think that that's going to happen. Let me just start with when he said that, which is Investors Day several months ago. What made him be able to say something like that, right? He says, I still think we're going to hit auto gross margin 20%, but you should really watch out is operation expenses, right? OpEx. And I think what he saw at that time, which is months ago, is they have the ability to see the prices of supply chain, commodities, transportation, and inflation going down. And so during a time of recession, it's actually really good for manufacturers and companies who can maintain margins and production levels like Tesla. And we'll talk about that too. Tesla's demand is not falling. Okay, that's my opinion. And so that's we have to debate that or not. But even during a recession, if companies' demands fall, but then their price of cost supplies fall too because it's a recession, then you don't see it. But in fact, for a strong company like Tesla, where demand stays up where they're at, but their cost of goods is going down, that's what they saw. They saw inflation falling dramatically months ago. And that's why he was able to predict that this was the case. So I'm very confident that they're going to hit at least 20%. I just interviewed Jeff Lutz, who's a supply chain expert. It's one of my videos that we just launched today. And he went through, and I'll walk you through some of the key points that he made, but very confident that that's going to happen. So for me, auto gross margins is going to be just great. I think that they're going to show some OpEx improvements now. And the question I've been asking everybody I interview is, do you think when they did Investors Day that all the things, they spent 4 hours talking about ways they're going to do cost reductions, how much of that is going to show up in Q1? Or is it all going to, show up basically Q3 or Q4 this year, but not now, it's too early, right? And then I do think that I think that they're going to be very conservative, that we're not going to see too much energy this quarter, but then they're going to be able to, the guidance that they're going to give is going to be quite high. So let's just start off with that. But where did you want to, where do I start here with?
It's great. Well, why don't we look at that cost of goods sold issue, as well as any operating benefits that you think they're going to get, or that you've heard that you believe that they're going to get. So I've done a couple of videos on a list of ways that I think cost of goods are going to go down. I'd love to hear what you're hearing.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the top highlights that Jeff Lutz just went through. He talked about the cost advantage of Tesla, okay? And he wanted to kind of explain to people what cost of goods sold is and how to think about it in terms of Tesla versus our competitors, right? And so people are very, very much concerned about the price cuts because they've not only had a massive price cut in January, but they keep doing price cuts ongoing, right? But the first thing he wanted to point out was that if you take a look at the prices, the average MSRPs of the Model 3s in 2018 and the Model Y in 2020. So these are like a couple quarters after they just launched the products. And this would be the worst time to look at their margins, right? And their prices, because it's like they just launched it, right? They haven't yet had efficiencies of manufacturing scale and all that. Well, if you look at those prices of the Model 3 and Model Y, they are basically flat to today. They're the same as today, as what it is now.
Right.
Pre-COVID. Okay. And so people are like, oh my God, Tesla keeps cutting prices. But actually, it's the same price point. Now, you know what their margins were when they did that? Their auto gross margin in the launch quarter was 21% for Model 3 and 23.7% for Model Y. So this is pre-COVID.
That's right.
Yeah. So okay, for us to hit 20% at this point is not going to be it's not going to be a big stretch, despite the price cuts. But we'll talk about it. What about recession? So when COVID hit, COVID was a massive impact, because COVID has huge impacts to the cost, right? Because there's just so much that happened. The labor and the labor was three times increase because nobody was able to go work. Logistics, the shipping was 10 to 20 times increase in terms of the cost of shipping and cost of labor or inbound logistics. This is, remember, before they even Tesla started to do their factories were closer to location. Right. And then the raw material scarcity went up 50 times. So COVID caused every company's prices to skyrocket. And so that's why Tesla had to raise their prices, right?
Yeah.
But then at Investor Day, Tesla showed, they had a graph, and they showed that we took the Model 3 cost of goods from 2018 to 2022 down by 30%. 30% reduction. So if they had the same price, and they had an auto gross margin in 2018, then they reduced the cost of goods by 30%, even more. Okay. Yeah. They have room to cut the prices, and they just cut it to where it was in 2018. And so, all the things that happened because of COVID pretty well went away, right? We saw that the raw materials have fallen. They've solved the issues of the logistics costs and shipping costs. And we're in a recession. Now we're in a massive macro recession. Like some people are, debating, are we in a recession? Have we been in a recession? Is it coming? But in a recession, the cost of goods is actually good for Tesla because it's falling. Their ability to negotiate, their ability to, especially if other companies can't do it because they don't have the demand for their product, right? Then it's actually a good thing because it's another way for the cost of goods going to fall significantly for recession. Right. And the question becomes, is there demand fall as well, right? So people will say, well, macro recession, this is pretty bad. In a recession, people stop buying cars and the interest rates are so high. People are going to stop buying cars. Okay, well, let's take a look and examine that further. And if you look at 2008, which is, by definition, the worst recession we've ever had. Right. It was a financial crisis, right? Right. It's a different kind of recession. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill recession. This was the world is over. Take your money from the bank and run away kind of stuff. In that period, the new sales fell of all cars in the U.S. sold. It's typically around 16 to 17 million cars a year. It fell from that to 12 million cars a year. Okay, that's the cause of the recession. People can't afford these cars. They need to hamper down, right? But in that time period, hybrids rose. And that's when hybrids took off because people can't afford the gas and they knew the maintenance cost. And then they realized that if I need to buy a car, so it fell from 17 to 12 million. So it's not like it just a crash. There were still people buying cars regardless of a massive recession. Right. So this time around, we will see a reduction from 17 million cars, 16 million in 2019, whatever, to where it is now. It'll probably reduce, yes. But guess which cars will not be reduced, which is EVs. Electric vehicle cars will not see an impact. And then what Jeff was pointing out was, if you look at the rise of the EV market share, it's 50% growth. So even in a reduction of people buying cars by 35%, if your EVs is going up by 50%, EVs is not going to see a demand reduction. Right. Okay. Right. So, he went through all that.
I think another way to look at it too is that Tesla, if anybody looked at it seriously and honestly, Tesla is not seeing any demand reduction, but they're making a lot more vehicles. And so the demand, it's not a demand problem, it's actually a supply problem, is they have a lot of supply that they have to sell that they didn't have to sell last year. So they're going to add 90,000 cars this year. 900,000 cars this year compared to last year. You got to find homes for all those cars.
Right. So I think that for investors, what Christian will tell me is that, well, the issue is that Tesla is rated as a growth company, so people are already priced in that they're expecting that it's going to grow by 50%. So even though yes, it's going to grow by 30%, oh no, the stock's going to fall because it's no longer this priced in 50% growth. Okay, but so then we can talk about like what do we expect with. So that's like that's what's happening with prices, but where was I going to go with that next? So yeah, there's a lot of cost advantages that that Tesla has. So I asked Jeff, okay, well, Tesla showed us a 30% reduction from 2018 for the Model 3 to 2022. What about the Model Y? Well, Model Y came out in 2020, and they're still in the middle of potential, additional cost reductions going to go down. Their factories are kind of just a couple of years later and all that stuff. So that's the most important thing. So we might not see a 30% reduction in the cost of goods sold for the Model Y. He was thinking maybe 20%. And so if your prices and your cost of goods go down, if your cost of goods go down by 20%, you have the ability to reduce your price by 20% to maintain your margin. So they have price to play. So then the question becomes is, are they reducing prices because of demand, or are they reducing pricing because of another reason, like a strategic reason, right? And the way I see it is this: the way I don't think it's because of demand. So it's a nuance, okay? Because what Tesla does with pricing is called price variability. What is it called now? I'm sorry. A variable pricing.
Variable pricing, yeah.
Right? Yeah, because Tesla sells their cars direct to consumer. So just like airlines, so this is Amy. I have Amy on my show quite a bit, and she's taught me a lot about how airlines do pricing. And she told me about, we did a whole show talking about how, we showed how Tesla does variable pricing, because Tesla sells cars direct to consumer, unlike OEMs who sell to dealers. They basically change their price, just like when you decide to buy an airline ticket, it changes every day.
Yeah.
Well, Tesla's doing the same thing. Every single different location, every different kind of car, different segment of the car, the kind of the what kind of long range versus regular range and those kind of things, right? They'll if they see any kind of movement in their supplies, in their delivery, in their supply chain, and their inventory, they'll change those prices.
I think
they'll do it both ways.
Yeah, I think it gets more specific than that. I was kind of thinking about this the other day. I do Amazon products. I sell products on Amazon. And so I'm selling direct to the consumer. I'm an importer, so I'm like the manufacturer selling direct to consumer. I can tell in a single day if a product is going up or down. So Tesla literally has their people going on their website and then choosing not to buy. Well, if they go on the website and choose not to buy, and they actually filled out the thing and they looked at the price and then they moved away, they can see a percentage of how many people are not buying, and they can make some judgments on whether that's because of price, and then raise the price or lower the price. And then a few days later, you've got a new set of data coming in just from the website content that would tell them whether their price increase or decrease was effective. I mean,
Amy was saying that Tesla has their own software that they use to do pricing, and they are, as you know, they have, that's as you just described, right? They have tremendous kind of visibility into all of this. They know what's going on. So people are like, I call us armchair managers. We're all armchair people making comments left, right, and center, and tweeting this and tweeting that. And I'm like, okay, I trust Tesla. Why? Because they have the visibility. They have the software. They know. They're not dumb. Like I did a tweet recently, and I'm saying, like, do you really think that Tesla management are idiots? Do you think that Tesla management doesn't know the price, the price elasticity curve? They know very well to the percentage point. Like if I reduce the price by $5,000, a Model 3 LR, whatever, that I'm going to see this many more people affordable and be able to buy it. And it's usually at that price point, when they reduce it by 5,000, you're going to see a 20% increase in people can afford it and then start buying it. So when they do price cuts like this, I see it more as it is a because they can. Their cost of goods has fallen, and they want to be able to increase their the sales so that they continue the growth of 30% or higher. And then I go and I say, well, if you're right that there's a huge demand issue, which I'm not saying is not possible, it can absolutely be possible, and that's why they're reducing price, then great. Please reduce the price. Why are people like upset? Why are reducing price? Like they're going to advertise instead. It's like, no, if it's because of demand issues, then yes, you should reduce your price. And so I mean, obviously people are now debating whether an advertising is a cheaper way. And that's my other point. It's like, you don't think that Tesla has the ability to do that simple math, to calculate whether or not, if I put $100 million of advertising, is that better than doing $2,000 reduction for this many cars of Model Ys? And therefore I'm talking like, I'm going to lose 500 million a year. And so why are you doing that? Well, you don't think Tesla knows how to do that simple math? They do.
Well,
right?
and to Elon's point, and this is, I have to admit, I had to actually run a video one time called I Goofed. Okay.
Yeah,
because I was so heavily invested in the idea that they needed to start advertising in 2023, back in end of December, beginning of January. And then Elon dropped the price like crazy. And I'm like, no, that wasn't even on my list. So having thought about it now for 3 months, just like you kind of ran through, but there's another element to it. Elon's saying, no, we have to do it in order to get to a larger addressable market. But there could be a point at which, in fact, you lower the price and you don't get the response.
No, that's not true.
No, there could be. In other words, no. If there's not enough information, if the information is not flowing through the chain fast enough. Okay, let's take a brand new market. For instance, I've been saying all along for months and months, we know that the Midwest is not buying like the coasts are. So the Midwest, part of the reason they're not buying like the coasts are is because they're not getting as much information. They're not getting as much word of mouth. They're not paying as much attention to the entire electrification issue. The conservative folks who have politically conservative leanings like me, I don't understand them, but they don't seem to understand the amazing abilities that the electric cars have compared to what they cost. So there's an information gap with the flyover states, and they're not buying nearly as many cars. So you could reduce the price. They still don't have enough information to make the purchase. So I think there's a point at which, as you lower the price and you don't get the response, the phone doesn't ring. Okay.
I don't agree. And
okay.
The reason I don't is because every time Tesla reduces the price, there is massive media coverage of that.
Well,
there
that's true
is every legacy media company, every mainstream media, they report it. The TV, articles, websites, everything. And that's why I'm actually a proponent. Like somebody like Jeff and others were debating and saying, I don't mind them reducing price. What I just don't like is how they keep reducing it like every week, every 2 weeks, every month, instead of doing it once a quarter or something like that. And they don't want that because they think that it gives people to think, oh, they're going to keep reducing price, so I'm not going to buy now. I'm going to hold off. Maybe they'll reduce more. Right. Well, actually, I think that every time they reduce the price, there's a kind of a mass media blitz out there saying Tesla cuts price across the board. Tesla cuts price across the board. My family, secondary family, the extended family, they're now hearing and understanding that Tesla is no longer this, $100,000 car, but it's actually, they keep price, they're reducing price. So now they're going to look into it some more. So every time they do that, that is massive marketing, that the price has gone down. And I think that that's very, very powerful. So I actually don't mind that they do this. Now, all it takes is for them to have another thing that says, Tesla raises price by $2,000 or something like that. And then people go, okay, I better jump on it now because it might go back up again. Or Elon saying something. So, and then I've shown in one of my other videos, this, price elasticity curve, right? Precisely what it looks like and where the price points are. And so what I'm saying to you is that, no, if you're at $35,000 Model 3, every $2,000 to $5,000 reduction of that you're talking an exponential curve. It shoots up by 20%. And you can already see when that first happened in January. This is when we pulled this thing out. You can see where the Model Y was and where the Model 3 was, and with their new price reduction, what changed to their market. When the Model Y is so priced so high, you're talking it's a tiny little bit of market that's available to afford that, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as you open up the available market, let's say you're right that there's still a huge percentage of people that just don't know. They don't find out. But the available market has risen to the point that the ones who do want to buy a car, they do a quick search, they find out that there's price. We're now at price parity.
Mm-hmm.
We're now at price parity. And in fact, this is prior to the IRA. And then with the incentive, you're now cheaper. And this is before talking about not needing to buy gas anymore or not needing to do any kind of services in the future, which people just discount for some reason. But just price parity. And so that's another tweet that I gave, which is like, okay, what happens if Tesla is able to hit price parity? So maybe that's their goal. So strategically, so I could make 30% gross margin, but instead I'll keep it at 20%.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can now get to price parity, I'll keep lowering the price until I get to price parity, or even better, what kind of advertising, what do you think the media is going to start reporting, right? They're going to report this. Everybody will start it's like a big moment when all of a sudden people go, oh my God, EVs are now cheaper than gas. When that comes out, that's no matter what kind of advertising, even better than safety, better than anything else, honestly. So there was another great chart that I showed. I have so many videos. You got to find the one that I did this. It came from Omar, and it showed that they did a recent survey, pretty big survey, and they asked people, what's the number one reason you don't buy an electric vehicle? Still cost.
Mm-hmm.
Cost.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've ascertained that you're going to be looking. You're not going to really care. Tony.
We can't hear anything. It's okay.
You can't hear anything? Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Good. I thought it might be coming through.
No.
Okay. All right. So we've ascertained that you're not going to pay that close of attention to the margins. You'd probably like it to stay above 20, but in truth, I was noticing the other day that, hey, if it went to 18, it would still be 3 times better than most companies out there.
I want to make a point. Sorry,
Sure,
keep interrupting you.
Sorry.
I don't normally do this when I'm flipping.
It's the other way around, right?
Okay. When you hear Gary Black and other analysts, and they see the price cut, what they will do is they'll show you the new price target for the next 6 months or 12 months, and they've reduced that.
Right.
And the reason they do that is because he says that when you do a price cut, it ripple effects to not only this quarter, but the next several years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they do discounted cash flow to tell you why this is a new price target.
Right.
Well, that's wrong.
It's completely wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Because the price cuts this quarter should not affect, again, variable pricing and margins improvement, and they're going to continue reducing cost reductions, cost of goods sold reduction, and then all these things will affect margins on a continuous basis. Not like it's a fixed thing. This is it.
Right.
The cost is not going to go down anymore. No. And then of course Gary does understand, and I want to talk about this too, which is you're talking about Model Y, you're talking about Model 3, and now there's a potential compact car, right?
Right.
But the Model Y is our number one sales product, and the Model 3 is kind of like it. The Model Y, they did a mistake because the Model Y was so successful. The Model 3 didn't do as well as they hoped that it would do because everybody just bought the Model Y, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, compact car is not going to be around until another year and a half, maybe 2 years. Today, we just heard that Giga Mexico might be a year and a half, not as fast as we all hope for.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, while you're waiting for that segment, the compact car segment, I've always been saying, and I think it's going to come true, which is what they need to do is lower the cost of the Model 3 so that there's a bigger separation between the Model 3 and the Model Y.
Right.
And in the meantime, have the Model 3 kind of act like the compact car, attack that market.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the compact car comes, they can start raising the Model 3 price again.
Mm-hmm.
So the Model 3, the Project Highland, first in the last quarter call, they said, we decided not to do any revisions to our existing lines. We're going to build this brand new factory, and that's what we're going to focus on and doing the unboxing process, right?
Right.
Then, of course, there's a leak. There really is a Project Highland. There is a revised Model 3. They didn't want to announce that before it comes out. So the Model 3 revised will be cheaper than the current Model 3, and their margins will be higher. Right now, they make more margins on the Tesla Y and the Model Y than they do on the Model 3. It's cheaper for them to build the Model Y than it does the Model 3.
Yes.
So now they'll, Model 3, the cost of goods and how they build it's going to be right. The casting and all that will be matching Model Y. So they can reduce the Model 3 prices even more. And what happens when they reduce the Model 3 by $5,000 to $10,000? It will act like the compact car market now. But while they're waiting 2 years from now. So, okay.
No, I get it. And I think you're 100% right. I think ultimately we might have a $45,000 or $40,000 Model Y. We'll have a $35,000 Model 3 and a $25,000 compact. And you'll be hitting all three of those markets. They'll be like $10,000 apart. And some people will prefer to, just for prestige purposes, even if they don't mind the size of a hatchback, for prestige purposes, they'd rather have the 3. So they'll pay the extra, or maybe they like the additional size. Anyway, so I see that there's 3 potential markets there. KPIs. So what about did they talk about the average selling price?
They did, right? They said that they still think that they're going to be able to hit the average sales price.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the number was now. 20? No.
That's right. So it was 50. It was 50. And if the overall pricing has come down around 20%,
46. Yeah.
46 is the number that they were suggesting.
Okay. So yeah, that's right.
I've seen numbers.
They're still going to hit that ESP. So again, people are like, I think they're going to just keep, it's like they're maneuvering pricing going down, and they might raise it again. But I'm perfectly fine with them continuing to lower the price, even if it is in lieu of margins. And so this is obviously heresy, because my audience are Tesla investors. I'm a Tesla investor, and it matters. But I just think that there's a strategic maneuver here, right? And I'm willing to sacrifice kind of like what happens this year versus the following years.
And as people almost say as an afterthought, it's like we have this whole discussion about cost of goods sold and whole discussion about the average selling price and what it's going to mean strategically. And then as an afterthought, people say, oh, and by the way, every car they sell this year is a potential sale for full self-driving later.
Exactly. So that's another strategic move that they're doing, right? Let's get volume. Volume matters more than margin. Right. And if you have volume, then we're going to make up the margin in future sales of software and FSD and others. And then what happens to competitors? I don't know if it's their goal to kill the competitors. I don't think so.
No,
but it's their goal to grow as many as to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, which is sell as many EVs you can make. And so if you can make 2 million cars, and by the way, I do think that that's one of my KPIs. I think that in earnings call, they're going to still, they guided for 1.8, and I hope that they say it's still 1.8, but in fact, they might say I guide now to 2. Okay.
Elon said, aspirationally 2, and my figure is 2.2. So.
Right. You're famously pushing for 2.2. They got to catch up if that's the case. But if whatever produce they can do, they want to sell it in lieu of margin, right? Well, when they do that, what happens to Lucid and Rivian, who people won't want to buy that anymore if they can buy a Model Y, a Model S, right? And then what happens to the competitors? We're now watching the comparison of the prices, and we're watching them just kind of like not compete anymore. And so this is like a crucial moment if they can't get profit for their cars this year, it matters to them. Their survival matters.
Yeah.
They're trying to make that transition between the gas to the electric vehicles. The electric vehicle demand is skyrocketing faster than they realize. The demand for ICE vehicles is falling faster than they realize. Significantly, I think there was an article today about China, and the gas car prices of China has plummeted.
Yeah.
And specifically the used car prices there has plummeted because people are realizing, I mean, it's obvious at this point that if you buy a gas car today, like right now, used or new, just say goodbye to its residual value. Nobody's going to want it in 5 years.
Right.
And so it's like, it's a critical moment. And I think that if they do this, okay. And are you still concerned that Tesla's going to get 20% of the market share by 2030? Or maybe they'll get 40%. It's like pretty obvious that no one else will be able to catch up and match them. So
yeah,
strategic moves, right?
Yeah, I think Elon specifically would not be interested in eliminating any of the other BEV makers. He would hope that every single BEV maker succeeds. However, I'm sure he's interested in displacing as many ICE cars as he possibly can. But the truth is, he can only displace 1.8 to 2.2 million this year. Therefore, you need the ICE makers to provide the automobiles that will not be made by Tesla this year or by other BEV makers. So, there's a transition. There has to be a transition. We can't just turn off oil, turn off natural gas, turn off cars in 1 decade. And in 1 year. It'll take a decade, and that's enough.
Martin Vieca tweeted out there was this table that showed the demand for electric vehicles going up from now to 2030, and it showed that the decline of peak ICE has already happened.
Yeah,
peak gas cars, and it's falling.
Yes.
And then he asked the question: is what happens if the ICE crashes faster than we want, and then there's a gap between not enough people creating electric vehicles, but the demand is so much higher than the ability because of the ICE vehicle falling. What happens? He was asking that question.
What's the answer?
Tesla can raise prices if they want to 2 years from now.
Well, yeah,
if they want to grow their margins.
Yes, used car prices will go up. Both ICE and every used car price will go up. It'll be a crazy market for a while, and what it'll do is it'll stimulate all of the other BEV makers to get as fast as they can to market.
Yeah. So there is this nice video when Elon was interviewed by John and the other Tesla owner, Silicon Valley people. There was a clip where he was talking about how affordability. You see this one, I think, where he was saying how you can create the most desirable car. You can create new features. You can make this car fly or something like that. But at $100,000, nobody can buy that. Nobody can afford that.
Exactly.
No, so you can keep adding new features to it, make it so desirable, but nobody can afford it.
Right.
And so when you have a car company like a Lucid or a Rivian and others, he's already saying they're not long for this world. He said it at that clip, because those guys are going to struggle because they need to cut costs fast. They need to be able to reduce that price of the car to make it every time you reduce the price, the more people can buy it. So in order to reduce the price, you have to have reliability. And so one of the things that I just interviewed Sat just a few days ago, you were telling me that you watched that video as well.
Yes.
And one of the things that he kind of pointed out was the big reason why Tesla has the ability to kind of like just dominate is actually because of not because they create incredible cars, it's because of their cost reduction, their cost efficiencies, right? And if you didn't have that ability to reduce the cost efficiencies, you can't survive.
Yeah.
And so he showed how the evolution of Tesla through the years, when they were trying to still compete against companies like just the hybrids and the appliance cars and so forth, that it was their ability to reduce their costs. Because if you compare what you did, what some of the car companies' costs are when they were at the comparable stage, when Tesla was, 2012 to 14, when they were still creating their Model S, and you compare it to the Rivian today, these guys are burning $22 billion or something like that. I can't remember exact number, but Tesla was like 1/10 that or less.
Yeah.
And so why is it that two car companies are creating the same $100,000 cars? Because you need to, right? You need to sell the high cost cars at the very beginning, but their cost was too high. And so like 10 times higher than what Tesla had at that time. So you can't survive. And that's what's going to happen now. But Tesla was able to produce this incredible car at a very low cost. And that's what's cool. And so as they reduce the cost even more, that's how you can see margins. So it's not like I'm going to raise the prices and that's how I need to get my 30% margin. You can get your 30% margin by reducing prices. You just need to reduce your costs. And didn't you watch Investor Day? 4 hours. They showed like 12 departments. Every single department stood up and said, this is how we're going to reduce cost. And each one of them went the list, one by one, how they're going to reduce cost, right? They're probably going to head toward the model where there's no longer needing paint. They're going to probably have a brand new kind of material instead of steel, instead of the current model they have now. They're going to reduce costs, the unboxing model, the 4680s, the ramping of the factories efficiencies, everything's going to continue. I mean, there's that list that they showed and that Jeff went talking about all the ways that they reduce costs. It's like a list of 12 things, the cost advantage of incumbents. So should I go through that list? I'll go through it very quickly.
Sure.
So first of all, why does Tesla have an advantage over cost reduction over other car companies? First one, the CEO. It's his culture and his decision. Second is vertical integration. So when you have vertical integration, where if other car companies use suppliers to produce multiple products for them, well, they have their costs for the employees, but then they always will mark it up. Whether it's the product or the employees, they'll mark it up and have margins.
But there's there's other advantages to that as well. You have quality control advantages. You have just-in-time advantages. There's massive advantages.
Yes. So that's why they did that. Functional teams, again, just the idea that how they're organized, structured. Just I think what you just said here, because they have like car function teams that that they involve everybody in, it makes them to be much faster and quicker. Because they are the market leader, because they have predictability of cost for the future. Other car manufacturers, would you if GM walked up to you today and said, hey, I want to buy all your batteries and don't sell it to Tesla, and I'm going to buy I'm going to buy 1 million of the batteries for next year. Well, you don't trust them because they've sold 2 Hummers. They sold 20,000 bolts.
Right.
200,000 bolts. You're going to go, okay, I don't know if you're going to get to 1 million next year, but Tesla, you're pretty well sure. So you're going to give Tesla the greatest, because they have predictability ongoing. They're the leader. Minimal SKUs. This was when I interviewed Corey Steuben of Monroe Associates. He goes, the number one reason that Tesla is better than the other car companies is that their advantage is the minimal SKUs. So basically they just do one car, Model 3, one car to Model Y, and they have very few they just have the long range and the full wheel drive, and that's it. Other car companies, he was going down the list, they'll have like 8-10 different variations of that same car, and every one of them is a different line, cost them different paint, all that stuff. Focus on simplicity, no process, localization. They're building gigafactories in every country, right? You heard that Toyota, they had a brand new CEO take over Toyota recently. And people used to say competition's coming. And they would say, don't you know that Toyota has 150 factories? The moment they decide to do electric vehicles, it's going to be just a turn of a dime. They're going to be able to produce, 10, 20 million cars a year, not like Tesla who's struggling. How many factories do you have, right? Well, Toyota just admitted just recently, and they said that we made a mistake. We initially were going to have the same factory, the same line producing both gas car companies, hybrids, and electric vehicles. And apparently we can't do that if we want to reduce costs. And so now we need to either build brand new factories or refit this one. And oh, by the way, if I want to refit an existing factory, it costs the same as building a brand new factory.
Yeah.
So
which is the same, the Ford, General Motors, all the rest of them are running into the same thing. Yeah.
All of these car companies we heard today, like BMW and others, they announced that they are not eligible for the U.S. Incentive, and because they don't build their cars in the U.S.
Right.
So having localization, the engineering, supplier changes, the inventory, industry leading. So everybody's complaining about the inventory, the gap between the delivery and the production, because it's higher than what Tesla's ever had. Well, it's higher because they're selling more cars. Yes. But if you compare their inventory compared to any other car company, they are industry leading. They are the best. They have like 2 days worth or something like that. It's like some ridiculously low number.
It's 16 now. And that's the way to judge it, is how many days of production do they have in storage? So, or not in storage, in transition. Yeah.
Okay. Manufacturing. We know that their focus is on manufacturing. These factories are, they're just robots everywhere.
Beyond the state of the art. Yeah.
And everybody else, they have unions or whatever it is, and they're protecting their jobs and so forth. But anyways, and no ad spend.
Yeah. And no ad spend and no dealers.
No dealers, all that stuff. Okay, no, the financing will catch up to them. So, anyways, okay, sorry if I went on a.
No, that's good. That's good. It's all good. Hey, listen. What I want to do is this is going to be great, and we're going to. This will be when you're watching this. You're watching this on Tuesday afternoon, just before earnings day. So take it with a grain of salt. No, I'm sorry. Everything that we say here is absolutely 100% going to happen on Wednesday. And if you don't believe it, watch Wednesday and you'll see. Anyway, Herbert, as always, great to have you on board. Everybody should definitely watch his channel. Everybody should go on Spaces and see him on Twitter and follow him on Twitter. And you have a Patreon also. I'm sure you have a Patreon. We'll put all of that information below so you can follow all of that. And, you can follow me too, and do all those things for me as well. Anyway, it's been great having you on board. And thanks for being on board today with me. And it's been great talking to you.
A lot of fun. Thank you so much, Randy. Thanks, everybody.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.